Have you ever felt like the world is always on fire and you're just there, trying to balance everything with a teaspoon? Sometimes, it feels like a single phone notification or a sideways glance is enough to ruin our entire day. The good news is, it's not your fault. The bad news? Staying like this is a choice. But hey, no need to panic. Today, we're going to talk about how to be unshakable even when everything around you is a complete mess. And helping us on this journey are some old wise men who understood life long before WhatsApp and credit card bills, the Stoics. Stoicism is an ancient philosophy, but the most incredible thing is how it feels tailor-made for modern life. Seriously, these guys lived over 2,000 years ago, and we're already talking about how to deal with pain, suffering, anxiety, and even that wild urge to throw everything away. You know that moment when procrastination disguises itself as tiredness? Or when we neglect our health because there's no time? They had something to say about that too. Let's start from the beginning. The Stoics believe there are two categories of things in life: what we can control and what we cannot. Sounds simple, but think about it. Most of our frustrations come from trying to control what is beyond our reach. You can't control traffic, other people's behavior, or whether it's going to rain right after you did your laundry. But you can control how you react to all of it. And that's where the secret to life change lies. Marcus Aurelius, who was not only a philosopher but also a Roman emperor, wrote in his journal, yes, he kept a journal for self-awareness and emotional discipline. Almost a Stoic planner, that if it is within your power, change it. If it is not, accept it with serenity. He dealt with wars, betrayals, diseases, and still managed to keep his focus and composure. If he could stay sane while being an emperor, we can probably handle office chaos, screaming kids, and even slow internet, right? Now, imagine applying this to your daily life. You wake up already anxious about everything you have to do. The to-do list feels like a monster. What's the first thing you do? Pick up your phone and start scrolling through your feed. Just a few minutes. And then, you know how it goes. Procrastination walks in through the front door, takes off its shoes, and makes itself comfortable on the couch. The Stoics would ask, why are you running from your life? What are you trying to avoid? Pain? Discomfort? The truth is, avoiding discomfort only increases suffering. Ignoring a problem doesn't make it go away. Worse, it grows. This applies to everything: work, relationships, even health. That little ache you've been ignoring for months could be your body trying to talk to you. Improving your health starts with small decisions, small repeated actions. You don't need to run a marathon, but getting off the couch is a start. And you know what else the Stoics used to say? That we should prepare for challenges before they show up. That might sound dramatic, but in practice, it's just common sense. Seneca, another giant of Stoicism, said, "It is in times of peace that we must prepare for war." What did he mean by that? That when life is calm, it's the perfect time to train our minds. That way, when chaos strikes, and it will, we'll be ready. For example, imagine starting your day with a small Stoic reflection. Something simple like, what could go wrong today? And how can I respond with dignity, calm, and reason? It's not pessimism, it's preparation. This completely changes how we deal with the unexpected. A delay on the subway becomes an opportunity to practice patience. A difficult client becomes an exercise in empathy. And an angry boss becomes, well, a good reason to take a deep breath and remember you don't have to absorb other people's anger. Another important point: the Stoics deeply valued the present moment. Yes, way before mindfulness became trendy. Life happens now, not tomorrow, not on the next project, not when you've achieved all your goals. And it's not in the past either, where guilt, regrets, and the phrase, "I should have done things differently," live. Now is all we truly have. And it's in the now that we begin to improve our lives. This applies, for example, to habits. Improving your health, your well-being, and even your happiness are things that start in the present with small decisions. Drinking more water, sleeping better, eating more mindfully, saying no when needed. It may seem small, but these little choices shape a life that's more stable, lighter, and freer. And yes, it's hard. Living consciously takes effort. We're surrounded by distractions all the time. The algorithm knows exactly how to keep us hooked, and the couch is always more comfortable than any plan for change. But the Stoics would ask, do you want comfort or growth? Because the two rarely go hand in hand. Growth hurts. Facing yourself hurts. But it's a pain that's worth it. It's a pain that heals. Speaking of pain, let's talk about it. Pain is inevitable. It's part of life. The difference between suffering and learning from pain lies in how you face it. Epictetus, one of the greatest names in Stoicism, and who, by the way, was a slave for much of his life, said, "It is not events that disturb us, but the way we interpret them." That's a slap with a velvet glove, because it puts the power back in our hands. You can choose to suffer less. That doesn't mean ignoring what you feel, but understanding that you don't have to be a prisoner of it. Let's imagine a very everyday example. Someone criticizes you. It might be something simple, like a comment at work, constructive feedback that feels more like an attack, or an online comment that bruises your ego. You have two options: react on autopilot, feel angry, shut down, feel resentment, or stop, breathe, and think, what can I learn from this? Is the criticism valid? If yes, I improve. If not, I let it go. See how that changes everything? You stop being a puppet of your emotions and become the author of your own story. And little by little, life gets lighter. Not because things magically got better, but because you're stronger on the inside. Being unshakable doesn't mean feeling nothing. It means feeling with awareness and choosing what to do with what you feel. And that, my friend, is the key to real life change. It's not magic. It's practice. It's living philosophy applied to the everyday. It's you in traffic, taking a deep breath instead of honking. It's you saying no to one more episode and yes to a walk. It's you choosing to be better, little by little, every day. Yes, the world is chaotic. It always has been and always will be. But you don't have to be. When we start applying Stoic principles to daily life, something curious happens. Things don't stop going wrong, but they stop knocking us down. It's as if you become a rock in the middle of the storm. The water hits, the wind blows, but you remain there, steady, alert, present. Of course, this doesn't happen out of nowhere. It's training. It's repetition. It's a conscious choice. And most importantly, it's the willingness to change. But change is hard, right? We know what we need to do, but that inner voice always shows up saying, leave it for tomorrow. Or, but this is just who I am. And so, day after day, we keep pushing our own evolution aside. Procrastination is the silent thief of our happiness. It steals our well-being, sabotages our health, delays our life change. The Stoics talked about this, but in an even deeper way. They said that wasting time is one of the greatest mistakes a person can make. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." A punch in the gut, right? He was saying that time is our most valuable resource, and we treat it like it's infinite, as if there will always be a later to take care of our health, to start that project, to apologize or say I love you. So here comes the tough question. What would your life look like if you stopped postponing the things that truly matter? Maybe you'd start changing your diet today. Maybe you'd finally schedule that checkup you've been delaying. Maybe you'd dedicate 15 minutes a day to reflect, right, breathe, to reconnect with yourself. These small decisions are like seeds, and the fruits come sooner or later. Don't wait for the pain to get louder before you act. Because, as the Stoics warned, pain also teaches, but it's better to learn before it has to scream. And here comes an important shift. The Stoics didn't seek a life without pain, but a life with purpose. A meaningful life. Happiness, for them, wasn't constant euphoria or that feeling of everything is perfect all the time. It was inner peace. It was coherence. It was knowing you're doing what needs to be done, even if no one is watching. You know that good feeling of lying down at night and thinking, today I was better than yesterday? That's Stoic happiness. No fireworks, but a slow-burning inner flame that lights up everything. And speaking of lighting something up inside, let's talk about self-discipline. That word many people associate with rigidity, suffering, punishment, but which is actually freedom. Yes, freedom, because those with self-discipline are free. free from the slavery of impulses, laziness, fleeting desires that pass quickly and leave regret. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Think about it. Who decides what you do with your time? Your impulses or your reason? The algorithm or your values? Self-discipline is the muscle that allows you to do what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. And that, oddly enough, makes you lighter, because it removes the weight of indecision, the should I go or not. You simply go. You already decided, and you follow through. Of course, we're not talking about becoming an emotionless robot. Quite the opposite. The Stoic proposal is to learn to feel everything deeply, but not be dragged around by your emotions. It's the difference between driving the car or being tied up in the trunk while it rolls downhill. Emotions are signals, not commands. They inform us, but they don't need to control us. And that's also part of life change, learning to listen to your feelings with care, but responding to them with wisdom. And what about health in all this? Health is not just the absence of disease. It's energy, drive, mental clarity, emotional strength. And Stoicism values that deeply. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And we can apply that to the body, too. Your health is a direct reflection of how you live, think, feel, and nourish yourself. Not just with food, but with content, relationships, and habits. What have you been consuming? What have you been repeating every day? Small neglects turn into big problems over time. But the good news is that the opposite is also true. Small acts of care become great achievements. Replacing soda with water may seem insignificant, but it makes a difference. Going to bed earlier once a week already changes your mood. Meditating 5 minutes a day already reduces stress. And all of this connects to Stoic philosophy. Life is made of small, conscious choices, and they add up. Now, a quick pause for a curious detail. Many people think philosophy is distant, complicated, full of fancy words. But the truth is, the great philosophers had their feet on the ground. They were interested in how to live better, not in sounding smart. Stoicism wasn't made to decorate quotes on t-shirts, although that's fun too. It was made to be lived, felt, practiced. So let's simplify. Being a Stoic in the 21st century is having the courage to be yourself in a world that constantly tries to distract you. It's knowing you might get angry, but you don't have to be led by that anger. It's understanding you might be afraid, but you don't have to stop because of it. It's accepting that pain exists, but it doesn't define who you are. It's also having a little humor about your own humanity. Because, let's face it, we mess up a lot. And that's okay. The Stoics weren't perfect. They slipped up too. The difference is, they got back on track. They didn't judge themselves forever for their stumbles. They learned from them. And maybe that's one of the most beautiful lessons from this philosophy. Forgive yourself. Be firm in your decisions, but kind to yourself. It's not about seeking perfection, but integrity. It's not about controlling everything, but controlling yourself. And when that becomes a practice, it changes everything. Just imagine, you wake up and choose to start the day calmly. You take a deep breath. You give thanks. You make a coffee or tea. No judgment. You remember that you don't control what happens out there, but you can control how you'll respond. And that already makes you lighter. Things might go wrong, and you're ready. The day might surprise you, and you're present. Life might test you, and you respond with wisdom. That is being unshakable. And speaking of lightness, here's a final provocation for this part of the text. How about laughing a bit more at yourself? Taking life seriously doesn't mean taking yourself too seriously. The Stoics knew this. Life is already heavy enough. We don't need to turn it into a full-time personal drama. A touch of lightness is what prevents chaos from turning into collapse. And sometimes, laughing at a stumble is what saves the day. So breathe. You're on the path. And if today wasn't how you wanted, that's okay. Tomorrow is a new chance to be firm, to be kind, to be better. And all of that, my friend, is in your hands. We've made it this far, and if you've read the first 2 parts, you've already taken an important step. You chose to step out of autopilot. You started to look at life with more clarity, more presence. You've begun to understand that being unshakable isn't about becoming hardened, but about becoming stronger from within. It's about cultivating a sense of well-being that doesn't depend on circumstances. And let's be honest, that's what everyone's looking for, even if, more often than not, they're going about it the wrong way. Because when we're lost, the first temptation is to chase distractions, to try to numb the pain with momentary pleasure. Procrastination, for example, is almost always a symptom of something deeper. It's not just laziness. It's fear. Fear of failure, of not being good enough. And the saddest part is that by trying to escape the pain, we end up diving even deeper into it. You know what the Stoics did? They didn't run from pain. They faced it head on. They accepted that it existed, but refused to be controlled by it. They understood that pain can shape character, that suffering can teach, and that if faced with courage and wisdom, it can even set us free. Epictetus said, "Difficulties show what men are," and maybe that's life's greatest test. Who do you choose to be when everything seems to be falling apart? Because, let's face it, it's easy to stay calm when everything's going well. The real challenge is staying serene when chaos knocks at your door, when plans unravel, when health falters, when anxiety shows up again like an old acquaintance. And here comes a powerful question. Are you training your mind for the life you want to live? Most of us train the body, even if it's just to climb a flight of stairs without gasping for air. But what about the mind? Have you been training your ability to stay focused? To say no to what pulls you away from your essence? To breathe before reacting? To forgive yourself without falling into self-pity? Because all of this is part of true health. And yes, emotional health is just as important as physical health. One supports the other. And look, we're not talking about an ideal life where everything is zen, no one annoys you, and bills arrive tied up with flowers. That life doesn't exist. Real life is noisy, messy, full of interruptions. And that's the stage where you need to learn how to show up with presence and dignity. Happiness, real happiness, is born right there and doesn't take much. It takes attention, gratitude, and purpose. Gratitude, by the way, is a very Stoic theme. And here's a powerful insight. The Stoics trained gratitude not just for what they had, but for what they could lose. Yes, they practiced imagining the absence of good things in order to value them more deeply. That may sound strange at first, but it works. Have you ever tried imagining what your life would be like without the simple things you already have? Without a roof over your head? Without the freedom to come and go? Without your loved ones? Or even your own ability to start over? It's in this exercise that a more solid kind of happiness is born. Because you stop living in expectation of a next big thing and start appreciating what's already here. You realize that well-being isn't in some distant future, but in the small, conscious choices of now. And that gives you lightness. It gives you peace. It gives you a kind of happiness that doesn't sway in the wind. Now, back to the point about changing your life. Don't wait for some big event to start. Don't wait to hit rock bottom, to get a diagnosis, or to have a crisis before deciding to improve your health, break free from procrastination, or change your habits. The time is now, and it doesn't have to be all at once. Start small, but start seriously. Make self-care a priority, not a luxury. Make discipline an ally, not a prison. And above all, make philosophy a practice, not just an inspiring Sunday afternoon read. And if at some point you feel like you're failing, remember one essential Stoic principle. You are not what happened to you. You're what you do with what happened. Every stumble is a chance to reassess, to adjust your path, and to move forward with more wisdom. Failure is not the end. It's just a sign pointing toward a new direction. By the way, have you noticed how the wisest people are usually the calmest? It's not because they don't feel anything. It's because they've learned how to deal with what they feel. They've trained their minds. They've grown roots. And that's possible for you too. You don't have to become a monk or go on a spiritual retreat in the Himalayas, unless you want to, of course. But you can absolutely cultivate a bit of philosophy every day, even if it's just for 5 minutes. Want a practical suggestion? Before bed, ask yourself 3 simple questions. 1. What did I do well today? 2. What could I have done better? 3. What will I do differently tomorrow? This little ritual is powerful. It pulls you out of autopilot. It puts you in touch with your own life. And when you pay attention to your life starts to change. Another Stoic exercise that can really help is the dichotomy of control. Whenever you're anxious or frustrated, pause and ask, is this under my control? If the answer is yes, act. If not, accept it. It might sound simplistic, but this habit changes everything because it helps you save energy. Instead of wasting hours trying to change the uncontrollable, you channel your strength into what really makes a difference. And you know what happens when you live like this. With more clarity, more purpose, more self-awareness, you become an inspiration, even without trying, because your presence starts to affect the environment. People feel your calm. They feel your integrity. And maybe they'll start asking, how do you manage to keep it together with so much going on? And then, who knows, you'll talk about Epictetus, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, or maybe you'll just say, I've learned to worry less about what I can't control. That's enough. And if all of this still feels out of reach, remember, even the Stoics had bad days. Marcus Aurelius, the great emperor, wrote entire passages wrestling with doubts, fears, and anger. Seneca faced persecution and exile. Epictetus was a slave and still became one of the greatest teachers of inner freedom. In other words, no one is born ready, but everyone can grow. And in this case, growth is a daily choice. So, to wrap up this journey, here's the final reminder. You don't need to wait for the world to change your life. You don't need everything to calm down to become calmer. You don't need others to behave to find peace. You just need to commit to your own growth. One day at a time, one decision at a time, one thought at a time. The world may remain chaotic, and it will. But you can be that presence that brings calm, that gaze that understands, that heart that doesn't harden, the mind that observes, the soul that stays steady. And that, my friend, is true power. You could be unshakable. Thank you for getting this far. If this made sense to you, return the favor with a like and subscribe to the channel.